you how to do your job.
Somebody ought to tell me how to do my job.
I think you're wrong.
So I do want you guys to know that I'm going to see if I can get my business cards updated to Great High Guru or whatever that was, because that sounds a whole lot more fun than my actual job title. So what I want to talk to you guys today about are a couple of resources that we have available to us at UNT. Predominantly, I'm going to talk about the EAP, but before I do that, I want to real quick plug the CARE team. For many years, we've had a CARE team for students who were at risk, and we could refer them onto this group of folks that we could say, okay, they might be in crisis or they might be heading down that path. We have actually extended that over the last couple of years to staff and faculty. So there's a piece of paper that's actually a full sheet of paper that actually goes on a little bit about the CARE team resources for staff and faculty. And it's got the website down at the bottom because there's some hyperlinks in there that clearly you can't click on paper. So there's some good information. So if you're ever in crisis or you know somebody who you think is in crisis, you can refer yourself, you can refer someone else to the CARE team, and we'll look at it and see if there's some referrals that we might be able to make and those kinds of things. So beyond that, you also have a flyer that talks about the EAP, which for us is Alliance Work Partners. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going into great detail, but I want to let you know that this is really a great resource for you and your family, right? So just personal disclosure, I have a 14-year-old. We all know that means my life is hell on any given day. And other days it's amazing. But the reality is I'm fortunate that my daughter is wise enough to know that when she's stressed, she needs someone to talk to. And sometimes her friends aren't that best option because sometimes they're the problem, right? And sometimes her parents aren't the best option because sometimes we're the problem, right? So we've always encouraged her, if you ever want to talk to a counselor or anything like that, just to have someone to talk to, let us know. We want you to do that. And so this year, actually, for the first time, she's like, I think I want that. And so we actually were able to connect her with a really great counselor through the EAP. She gets 6 free sessions through the EAP for any issue, right? So if she says, okay, well, I'm having friend issues, and I need to talk to someone about that, she could get 6 issues for that. If she has, so let's say there was a death in the family and she needed to talk to someone about that, that would be another 6 sessions. Those are free. Cool thing, our insurance also does provide some mental health resources. So you can do a $25 copay if you go through them, and then it's just ongoing. You don't have to deal with the 6 and 6 and 6. But great resource, and it's out there and it's free. The EAP has a number of other things. Those are kinds of the things we typically think about for EAP is someone who has an addiction, it's a good place to kind of get the counseling and kind of start heading down the path of recovery or any of those kinds of things. But there's a huge swath of different issues that they can look at and help with. So just know that that's out there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the HR website and just kind of navigate to show you how to get to the EAP. If you just do AWP now, if you're like me, I don't remember that from day to day, right? But on your computer, you might bookmark it once you set up an account, so you can go in and you'll have access to all that information, and you won't have to kind of keep logging back in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat, and I'm just going to type in UNT system, because the way we're structured is HR actually reports to the system. Although there's a group of us here on campus, we work here, we support only this campus and that kind of stuff, but technically our reporting structure is to the system. So our EAP information is here, so if you go there, you click that, you can go straight to Human Resources, but even if you didn't, you can see right here, and all you have to do is type in EAP, and you should get a good search. First hit's going to be Employee Assistance Program. All right, now on that flyer you got has the login information, but if you're like me, you're going to file that in a really safe place. and you'll never see it again. Until you're cleaning out your filing cabinets and you'll be like, oh, that needs to go in the trash, or recycling. So what you want to do is these are the phone numbers, but you actually just go in, you can go to the Alliance Work Partners website if you're going to actually go to use some of the other resources, because in addition to that counseling, their website is kind of awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say access my benefits, so I can kind of see what sorts of things I have access to, and it's going to prompt me to log on. So I'm going to log on with my username is my old email address, and then your password. For those of you the first time, you'll go down at the bottom and fill in all of your stuff to set up an account, but I won't make you do that right now. Once you get logged on, you'll see there are a number of different things. You can do this nice little video that'll help you, but right here you can see counseling. That's the stuff we were already talking about. HelpNet, which are a lot of online resources and assessments and whatnot. Law Access, it allows you to contact an attorney. It's like a crazy small amount of time, just to be completely honest. So if you know exactly what question you want, it's probably pretty helpful. But after you exhaust like the 10 or 15 minutes that you get for free, then they've done some agreement to make it at a lower cost with these particular providers. So the Law Access also has a lot of documents and stuff that you can use as well. And then, so I'm going to go up here to HelpNet, because this is really where you'll see the widest swath of information. This is kind of an overview. They've just redone their website. In this format, it looks so much better on your smartphone, PS. Before it was a whole lot of scrolling and that kind of stuff. So you can see right here there's a training center, so they have a lot of different trainings on different topics, communication, personal development. You can see they have them sorted by most popular or highest rated. I go more for the highest rated just because that's who I am. Communication strategies, effective communication, business writing, problem solving. There's a lot of overlap, so I'm not going to go into a lot of the different trainings, but I just want you to know that there are a lot of different things that if you're just, working out on one of these exercise bikes here at the rec center and that kind of stuff, it's something you could potentially listen to the audio of the training or something like that, just to be multitasking, because we know how effective that is. Relationships, so this is actually a variety of resources. Many of us are getting to the place where we're caring for our parents. Or we may have small children in the home. So there's information about those different kinds of things, some disaster preparedness articles and different things like that. So in finance, I'm going to click this. You can see, I'm going to go to budgeting. So if we go to one of these, you can see there's a lot of different topics. But if you go to most popular, you can actually download a monthly budget, so you can actually kind of go through and look at your finances in a very methodical way. And they're in just Excel spreadsheets. They're real easy to access, and so you can alter it however is most helpful for you. The other thing that is very helpful, in my opinion, is if you go to legal. So these are a lot of different topics and forms and such that you might find to help you with a variety of different things. One of the things that I think is most interesting is out here. Have any of you ever heard of nolo.com? It stands for nolawyer.com. It's an online website that actually prepares a lot of legal documents, and basically you fill them out yourself and then you get someone to certify it, and then you don't have to pay a bajillion dollars to an attorney. Always good. The Alliance Work Partners has partnered with nolo.com, and they've gotten many of their resources. And so you'll see here's one that's a will for an adult with children, one with no children. But it actually is also one of those documents from nolo.com. And you can see it just walks you through all the steps for how you would set up a will. If you have a real complex estate, clearly this is not the will for you. But I think for your average individual, it will probably do the trick, right? So there are a lot of really cool resources that are out here, and I wish I had a ton of time to go through some of the other stuff, but just spend some time when you're bored and kind of plug away through there and find some of that interesting stuff. There is one last thing I wanted to point out, and then I'll open it up for questions, is, let me go one more back if I can. Let me see. Oh, here, I'll cheat and go here. So go to help. No, it's doing the same thing. I'll go back. So if you look at, and you can actually access this through HelpNet, but it's not in the same place it used to be, so I'm going to go back to the easy place. So there's the resources that they refer to as work life. So some of these you'll see overlap with the stuff we were just talking about, but you can actually, if you need to find, if you're new to the area and you have a small child or a parent and you are their caregiver, but you need someone to take care of them during the day while you're at work, you can actually call them and say, hey, could you get me a list of child care places within a 10-mile radius of my house? Could you get me something for elder daycare, right? Those kinds of things. And they'll literally generate a list for you. So I call these concierge services, but they call them work life. Same with different things. If you've got backup care, you know, so you may be that, someone in your family may be that primary caregiver, but they need a break. They can find like those temporary, I can go drop my kid or my parent or person off to do those kinds of things. So there are a lot of different things like that. If you're looking for a particular type of health clubs, information about relocation, things like that, they can help you with all of those kinds of things. They may be directing you back to the resources that are on the EAP, similar to like if you call your insurance company and they'll refer you back to some of their providers that are on the website and those kinds of things. So those are those are really the big things that I wanted to be sure that we talked about. What kinds of questions do you guys have?
This is available to all employees, all faculty. So for example, I supervise some adjuncts. Could I mention this to them?
Absolutely. It's not for any of our students, right? Because they have services that are provided to them through the university, but it is available for all UNT employees and their families. So like my example earlier with my kiddo, right? She finally said, sure, I'd like to do that. And I was like, oh, all that paid off, good. So that's actually, you know, she can access it, my husband could access it, any of those kinds of things. So your immediate family and your household are eligible. So, and the other thing to know is if you access these services, the report that we get about accessing of these services is the number of people who accessed the services, and if any of those, how many of those were returnees, right? So if they've used it more than one time. That's it. There are no names. There is nothing associated with who that person is and that they've accessed those resources. It literally is, we've been contacted by X number of people from this institution, and that's the only data that we get. So they keep strict confidentiality. Ooh, one other super cool thing. If perchance you or a family member goes out to celebrate, you know, one of your faculty members has been here forever and they're retiring and it's a great big festivity, and you go out and maybe you have a little too much to drink. If you are cognizant enough to ask for a receipt, the EAP will actually reimburse you for that taxi ride. So if you can get, right, now being cognizant enough, that's the tricky part. I get that, right? Because, yeah, that's where it gets a little bit more sketchy, but that's a great benefit. So you know that you can always have a safe ride home. So definitely do that, and if you come into that space and you go, gosh, I remember that, call our office. We'll help you get to the EAP and figure out how to get that reimbursement, because it doesn't actually happen through HR. It is actually through the EAP. but we'll get you to the right place because you'll be like, I remember this conversation somewhere. So that's another fun perk that's available through the EAP because your health and wellness is really important. What other questions?
I guess I'll ask another one.
Okay,
No. So this is not, you mentioned it, but it's not linked at all to whether or not we decided to use the university insurance system, right?
Correct.
So if we opted out, things, okay.
Yep, totally separate. Any other questions? All right. Yep.
You said cabs, and I'm thinking about our younger adjuncts. Does that also include if they call Uber?
Yeah, I think if, as long as you have a receipt, something, as long as they can, you can produce something that said, I paid money to take this taxi cab and you connect it to, I've had a smidgen too much to drink. So I think any of those ride services, maybe we should stop calling them taxis, but I suspect if it's any ride service, it would be covered. Anything else? All right, thanks.
Now you have a name to go with, a face to go with the name. So you now you could maybe be more comfortable calling Sharice if you had something that you wanted to. I think that Danica is now up. Is that right? Okay. Let me get you going here.
Alright, so hi everyone. My name is Danica Slavish and I'm a postdoctoral research associate in the Department of Psychology here. So I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about my favorite topic, sleep. So we do a lot of sleep and health research in the lab that I'm working in. So why is good sleep important? Why should we even be concerned about sleep? Sleep to me is sort of the last frontier in health behavior research. So we've done a lot of work looking at the impact of nutrition and diet and physical activity, substance use on health, but sleep has gotten relatively little attention until recently. So we now know that sleep is involved in almost every bodily process, including things like wound healing, synaptic plasticity, regulation of metabolism. So it makes sense that good sleep is associated with almost every improved outcome for every disease, including things like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, depression, chronic pain. We also know that sleep is intimately tied to attention and learning and memory. So sleep, like I said, is involved in synaptic plasticity. We also know that after just one night of poor sleep, we see more impulsive behavior, more accidents, and actually even after just being awake for 17 to 19 hours, we see comparable deficits in cognitive performance as we see with blood alcohol levels of 0.05 or 5%. So it kind of makes you wonder why people aren't paying more attention to driving while sleepy as much as they're paying attention to driving while drunk. We also know that sleep is tied to mood and psychological functioning, so you probably already know that depression often co-occurs with sleep problems. However, this is a bidirectional relationship, but there's actually more robust evidence showing that sleep problems often precede the onset of mood disturbances. So this sort of suggests a causal link in sleep predicting later mood outcomes. And finally, we also know that sleep is tied to our overall quality of life, right? So even after just one night of impaired sleep, people rate their quality of life as being lower and their relationship satisfaction as being lower. So how do we define good sleep? This is sort of a contentious topic among sleep researchers, but there's a new acronym that's come out called SATED that kind of helps you think of 5 different facets of sleep. So these 5 facets are satisfaction, alertness, timing, efficiency, and duration. So satisfaction is just sort of your self-reported sleep quality. People are actually pretty good at rating their own sleep. So we typically assess this through self-report. And this is actually predictive of a number of health outcomes. You can also think about sleep in terms of the alertness that you're feeling the next day, or how refreshing that sleep is for the next wake period. We can also look at when you're falling asleep and when you're waking up, or sleep timing. So, for example, even sleeping the same duration, but at delayed times, is associated with poorer health outcomes. So that's why people like shift workers are often at a risk for impaired health. We can also look at sleep efficiency, which is the time you spend actually asleep divided by the time you spend in bed trying to sleep. So, this is a common problem in people with insomnia. Typically, you want to see sleep efficiency around 85%. So that means that you're getting rapidly achieved, well-consolidated sleep. And then finally, we can look at sleep duration, which is just the amount of time you're spending asleep. So, their typical recommendations are for you adults to receive between 7 and 8 hours of sleep. There is some individual variation in this. However, it's pretty much a normal distribution. So most people fall within that range of 7 to 8 hours, and some people are at the extremes. And these different facets of sleep can influence genetic and cellular processes to affect system-level processes like neural circuitry, inflammatory biomarkers, sympathetic nervous system reactivity, and over time these can affect health and disease outcomes. And of course, these are all bidirectional relationships. So if you have a disease, that can impair your sleep as well. So looking at what controls sleep, typically we use this two-process model, and this is characterizing normal sleep. So the first of these processes is the homeostatic sleep drive. So your body wants to maintain a state of balance, a state of homeostasis. So the longer you're awake in normal sleep, people without sleep disorders, the longer you're awake, the more you're going to want to achieve sleep. So for humans, typically it's 16 hours of wake followed by 8 hours of sleep. And this is controlled by the accumulation of sleep-inducing substances in the brain. We can also think of sleep as being driven by circadian rhythms. So this is your internal bodily clock. This is controlled by a section of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus. So a lot of things in our body are regulated by circadian rhythms, including your body temperature, hormone secretion. And another process that we can think about in terms of sleep disorders is the alerting or wakefulness system, which is often disturbed in people who have insomnia. So individuals who experience insomnia typically report that they want to sleep, but they can't because they're too aroused or too alert. So they experience this higher level of wakefulness than people without insomnia. So it's said that they might have a lower homeostatic sleep drive. So you can see here from this figure that the circadian alerting system and the homeostatic sleep drive sort of overlap at their peaks around 10 p.m. And then they tend to fall throughout the course of the night. And melatonin, as you can see, peaks around 3 to 4 a.m. And of course, both of these systems can be influenced by outside processes, right? So if you're experiencing loud levels of environmental noise, or the temperature drastically changes, of course that's going to affect these two sleep controlling processes. We also know that sleep tends to change dramatically as we age. So this kind of gives you a breakdown of the different stages of sleep at different ages. And we can see things like sleep latency, which is the amount of time it takes you to fall asleep after you get into bed with the intention of sleeping. That increases slightly as we age, and typically you want sleep latency to be around 10 to 15 minutes. If it's longer than that, you're at risk for a risk factor of insomnia. If it's shorter than that, it means you're really sleep deprived. We also see WASO, which is wake after sleep onset, tends to increase as we age, so we experience less restorative sleep as we get older. REM sleep, which is a rapid eye movement sleep. This is characterized by the presence of dreams, rapid eye movements, muscle paralysis, and this is actually a much more active state of the brain than the other stages of sleep. So this tends to also decrease likely as we age. For example, newborns spend 50% of their sleep in REM sleep, whereas adults tend to spend only about 25%. We can also see here that slow wave sleep rapidly declines. This is another phase of more restorative sleep. And then stages 2 and stage 1 sleep, the lighter phases of sleep, which make up about 50% of adult sleep, tend to also increase as we age. However, it's important to note that there is individual variation in this. So these changes that we see in sleep with age might actually be explained by co-occurring medical problems that tend to also occur with age. So if you're experiencing diseases that are disrupting your sleep, that could be explaining why for some people we see these declines over time. So insomnia is one of the most common sleep disorders in U.S. adults. So 10% of U.S. adults experience chronic insomnia, which is defined as trouble staying asleep, maintaining sleep, or getting restorative sleep for at least 3 nights a week over the course of 3 months. And then an additional 30% of adults experience transient or acute insomnia. So there are a number of predisposing factors for the development of insomnia, including personality characteristics like neuroticism. So anything sort of associated with hyperarousal of your sympathetic nervous system can be impairing or putting you at a greater risk for the development of sleep disorders like insomnia. We also know that unfortunately evening chronotype is associated with a higher risk of insomnia. So if you're a night owl, just be careful because that could put you at risk for the development of insomnia. However, it's important to note that just because you have these predisposing factors doesn't mean that you will ever develop insomnia. So typically what we see is that these predisposing factors interact with precipitating factors like an external sort of stressor, such as a new job or job stress, which probably a lot of you are experiencing currently. So that interacts with these predisposing characteristics to bring out these early stages of sleep problems. Of course, things like illness or injury or family stressors, the birth of a new child, changes in your schedule can affect your risk for insomnia as well. So insomnia really becomes problematic when these perpetuating factors develop. So things like having a really poor, irregular sleep schedule. If you're going to sleep at different times over the course of the week, over the course of the month, that puts you at a really elevated risk. Also, spending excessive time in bed, awake, not actually sleeping, is another risk factor or perpetuating factor. Taking long naps during the day, and doing alerting or arousing things really close to bedtime. So like if you're answering work emails and that's stressing you out, or you're ruminating about things that happened over the course of your day, that's another perpetuating factor for development of insomnia. As well as obviously consuming stimulants like caffeine. Unfortunately, this idea that a nightcap helps you sleep, so an alcoholic beverage before you go to sleep, is total myth. So you will maybe be able to achieve sleep more rapidly if you drink a glass of wine or something before bed, but you're going to experience less restorative sleep. So if you are someone who's experiencing some of these symptoms, some practical recommendations for you are to limit the amount of time that you spend awake in bed. This is a critical factor in cognitive behavioral therapies for insomnia. So contrary to popular belief, these treatments are not designed to increase your sleep duration, but rather to decrease the amount of time you're spending awake in bed. So this is designed to decondition the bed as a place of pre-sleep arousal and to reassociate the bed with rapidly achieved, well-consolidated, easy sleep. So you've probably heard some of these instructions before. Most importantly, try to maintain a fixed wake time 7 days a week. This is really hard to do, especially for people probably like all of yourselves who have really intense, busy schedules, things are shifting rapidly, you know. But this is like the best thing you can do to try to avoid insomnia. Also try to avoid any behavior in the bed besides sleep. So if you're someone who likes to watch television or look at your phone before you go to sleep, try to avoid that as much as you can. Also try not to sleep anywhere else except your bedroom so that you kind of learn that that place is associated with achieving sleep. And if you're still awake, if you're ruminating, you can't fall asleep, try to just leave the bedroom, get up and do something, like reading a book, and then come back only when you're feeling really tired. Also try to avoid naps, or if you really need a nap, keep it under 30 minutes, and try to do it before the mid-afternoon. And also try to get some exposure to bright light early in the morning. So like go on a walk, or just kind of look outside a sunny window or something. This sort of activates your circadian rhythm. And all of these instructions are part of cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia and good sleep hygiene. And these have actually shown, along with other psychological counseling, to be more effective at treating insomnia than sedative hypnotics like Ambien or taking benzodiazepines. So these recommendations do work in most individuals, and they are easier to maintain. Not easier to maintain, but it's a non-pharmacological intervention that you can use to improve your sleep. So if you're looking for additional resources, the Society for Behavioral Medicine is a good source of information, as is the National Sleep Foundation, or I'd be happy to answer any questions through email. So thank you. I hope this was helpful in a scientific and practical way. So if you have any questions now, I'd be happy to try to answer them. I'm not a clinical psychologist, so I'll just take that with a grain of salt. I'm actually covering for someone else who is a clinical psychologist, so if you want more clinical recommendations, I can refer you to her.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
Because I've been trying to track my sleep because I am very busy, and as I'm sure a lot of people in this room are, and so I have that extra glass of wine before I go to sleep because I've been like super stressed out all day, and it's 11 o'clock, and I'm like, I better relax, right?
Yeah.
So I have that extra glass of wine, and I have a sleep tracking app on my Fitbit, and I notice that when I have that extra glass of wine, my sleep, though the duration is the same, it's broken up into
More
chunks. So
fragmented.
so I have less peaceful
Right.
sleep. So my first question is, has there been, what's your opinion of these sleep tracking apps? Like, how accurate really are they? And I mean, I feel like it's helped me kind of keep myself more accountable. I'm just kind of curious, like, is that just me imagining it, or is there actually like real like scientific data?
So, I mean, these devices are a good start for tracking your sleep, but they're not, used in scientific research. So, like, we use a device called an ActiWatch that is similar to a Fitbit. So it tracks your activity levels, but it also has a light sensor, so it gives us a better sense of when you're actually like waking up and falling asleep.
Sure.
So these haven't really been validated for scientific like gold standard assessments of sleep. So you'll have to take